Hi, everybody. Today I'm going to give you a short video form rundown of my webpage that we created in this class. So right here, you can already see my homepage. Campus Common Ground was the name that we decided, or that I decided upon. I created a logo, which the with the colors of the United States flag and the both parties of the United States, the Democrats and the Republicans, to show that we are looking to building a bridge between those two parties. It also has some implementations of the American flag, since we're talking about United States politics. Right here, you can see help us advance for more common ground and consensus. And with the slogan, you can be part of a more diverse political landscape by inspiring the next generation of voters and politicians, obviously calling for action right away. And we continue that in the next part of our welcoming section. With this, it's time to act now, another call to action. And I used the photo of the time the American people stormed the Capitol because, in my opinion, this is a great representation of the political violence and the political uh, not discourse, but the political differences between the parties, and it always leads to problems in society. And I'm advocating for more common ground on college campuses, but specifically to teach people on college campuses to have more understanding for the opinions of others and to be able to have a civil discussion with them, even though they might not be the same opinion. So right here we have the menu as well. So let us jump to my purpose, which is the next page. Here I talk a little bit about my motivation and why it is such an important subject to me. The design of it is actually a gradient background, which turns from blue to white to red, obviously representing the American colors of the flag again. But also, I thought it's a nice idea to have kind of like the the conclusion or the consensus in the middle, where the colors kind of blend into each other, and then you have the two extremes on either side, the Republicans and the Democrats, to show that we truly have to come together and connect with each other, discuss our opinions, and come to a consensus and a common ground that can work for both sides. But obviously, that can only be done by having civil discussions and not villainizing the other political spectrums. So right here, I'm just talking a bit about what my motivation is, that I'm very, very concerned about the state of the politics in the United States, and in proxy that I would argue is very important for all the world, but in this case, obviously, we're talking about the US. Um, all right, let us jump to the next section to about the author. Here you can see about the founder of Campus Common Ground. I talk a bit about myself, how I'm a student at Florida State University, how I noticed that political conversations among my peers and among students tend to be very, well, not very civil. They tend to be very argumentative. You really want to try to purvey that you're right rather than looking to the other side and trying to find something in the middle that you can agree on. So right here, I'm talking about crazy or evil as well, different angles without either of them being crazy or evil. I talk about my motivation. I have a little picture of me right here, as you can see. Then if we go further down, this is the little introductory video that we made. I basically just state a little bit of my purpose as well. It's a short video about 40 seconds long. And here my a little bit of my storytelling about myself continues, right? So basically also a little bit of my purpose. If we go further down, actually, let us use the menu right here again. We go to identifying the problem. So I decided to choose three main problems that I wanted to focus on in this website. First of all, rising polarization and distrust. So basically, that people are getting more and more distrusting of the other side of the political spectrum, villainizing them, being more hostile towards them, which obviously all hinders the process of having a civil discussion and coming to a consensus again. Secondly, we have breakdown of the respectful political talk, which is basically incentivizing people to use certain rules while arguing to keep it respectful and to actually have a well, an efficient way of finding that common ground, right? Because if people are just screaming at each other, accusing each other of certain things, you're not going to be able to come together and found a or find a consensus which on which you can work now. So this is very, very important to me that people start respecting these rules and start talking to each other again. Because if it's always this argument, always this fight, there's just no way you can work together in society. The third is obviously the two-party pressure and lack of real choice in the US, where I go over a little bit of how the political the politics in the US is structured, which is very different to, for example, where I'm from in Germany, where we have multiple parties and you can choose from quite a wide array of opinions to vote for. And obviously, I state that, well, it limits your ability to make a decision that is close to your preferences or your opinions, which then obviously incentivizes radicalization into these two parties that are always going to oppose each other, and obviously they are going to villainize each other and look at the other side of the spectrum as them being evil or them being not able to work with the party that you're part of. So let us go to the next section now, where we have the social impact or the impact in general. So here I just go over how it impacts society, right? Where it is basically isolating these people quite a bit, right? And it's very difficult to find a or to develop an own opinion because you have to fit in one of these two spectrums, and that in it of itself leads to arguments. It leads to well, not being able to work with the other person and the opinions of the other person. And a big part here is as well that we have to start respecting the other people's opinions and not just see them as wrong, but maybe they're just from a different viewpoint. So this is kind of like the impact all of these problems that I just mentioned have on our society today. The next part, we're jumping right to the solutions. I did it in the similar way to the problems because I like the parallels here. So we have obviously implementing more than one political party, which would give people a lot wider array of opinions that they could choose from and vote for, which in turn leads to more synthesis and more um, I would argue in fact-based opinions because you now have a lot of different parties that have to argue together and they have to collude to make up a government. So you have to obviously implement a lot wider array of opinions that speak to different people of societies, which in turn leads to a better outcome overall for all participants. The second is internalizing discussion rules. So basically, really learning and respecting these rules that I mentioned earlier in breakdown of the respect for political talk, where I discussed how political talk is basically deteriorating, right? So right here we have some rules that people can have in or can use in everyday discussions to make the discussion more civil and to be heard by the other person. Because if you're not careful nowadays, people will always try to make you look evil, even though there might be a point behind what you're saying, right? So last but not least, we have the third solution, which is normalizing longer and slower conversations. We're very used to nowadays being like very fast paced, especially because of the medium that we're all on, social media or the internet, right? It's very depersonalized, it's very fast paced. So, in my opinion, we should definitely normalize sitting down again and talking to each other in a more normal fashion, I would argue it is. Because in the internet, there's no face, there's no nothing. I just write a comment and it doesn't really um, yeah, it doesn't really affect me as if I would sit face to face with somebody and argue with them. I can probably understand the opinions of them or where they come from a lot better if they actually have time to explain themselves, if they have time to make themselves be heard, right? So that's my three solutions. As you can see, I added some pictures that are fitting, in my opinion, to each of these subjects as well. In the solutions, you can see it as well, where we have Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton arguing. In my opinion, that was like one of the most influential debates in modern politics in the US. So that's why I thought it's very fitting. Here you can see the two people talking to each other and their two thought bubbles basically grab into each other. You can see that their ideas are forming something that works in the long run, right? So we don't have to only have our own ideas, but they can work together to have a consensus. And here you obviously see some people having a efficient conversation, and they're sitting down, they're looking at each other, they're talking, they take the time out of their day to do these discussions. So I think that was really fitting as well. The next page we can go to is my works cited and resources page. Here, obviously, you have the works cited page that I took from my paper initially. These are only the citations that I also used in text in my web page. If you scroll down a little further, I have another section which is articles and reports with links to all these sources that I used. And those are pretty much just articles that I find very interesting that people should read probably. And if they read it, they will probably have a lot better understanding of what we're advocating for. Lastly, I have my personal feature on the website, which is a blog. I tried to implement a discussion board. It showed to be fairly difficult with Wix, so I opted for a blog in which I posted three posts that I wrote myself. And in this case, you can click onto the post, which takes you here. You can read them and you can actually comment on them as well, which makes it a more interactive feature, which I like, just because discussion is all about participation, right? And coming to a consensus, you have to have discussion. So this is, in my opinion, the perfect opportunity to implement something of a blog, a forum where people can discuss their ideas, or where I can upload my thoughts and then people can comment on that, and I can maybe reach out to them and comment on their comments, and we can start having a civil discussion via that blog. So well, I think that's all. I hope you guys like it and see you guys later. Thank you. Bye bye.